The middleweight division for years has been very lackluster to say the least. Hell, I would even argue at one point it was probably the shittiest division in the entire UFC. I mean, have you seen some of the fighters we had at that time? Specifically, I'm talking about the 2019 to 2022 time period. However, recently nowadays, I would say that the middleweight division is actually one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC, with so much new talent and characters coming up the division. Looking back at the 2019 to 2022 time period, it's evident that the division was in a rough spot. Most of the top tier fighters were past their prime, and many of the new middleweights really weren't that good. Or some were, but a lot of fans didn't care for them. Look, let me provide some context. During that time period, the middleweight division was primarily dominated by Israel Adesanya as the reigning champion, and Robert Whittaker, who was actually beating everyone except the champion at that time. These two fighters were actually significantly superior to the rest of the division. While Paulo Costa was also present, the guy was very inactive and only competed once a year. He would actually go 2-2 in his last 4 fights at this time period. Around the same time, Yoel Romero experienced a 3-fight losing streak, leading to his release from the UFC due to his advancing age. And as for Jared Cannonier, although he was a very talented fighter, especially right now by the way, he didn't garner much attention during that time period. We even had gatekeepers like Brunson, but no one really expected him to go that far. You had Jack Hermansson, who was decent, but no one cared for him. And the same thing could be said about Marvin Vettori, but I personally like it when he gets mad though. Furthermore, there were several fighters whose career were on a downward spiral. Yes, we had a bunch of ranked fighters who were in massive losing streaks. These fighters include Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum, Naldo Souza, and man, I would even argue that Israel Adesanya's title reign became somewhat lackluster. Initially, it was quite good aside from the hiccup with Yoel Romero, but after his unsuccessful attempt to capture the light heavyweight belt at UFC 259, Izzy changed his fighting style into a safer, more defensive approach. And if that wasn't bad enough to hear, he was having a very uneventful streak, with his opponents being Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, and Jared Cannonier. Arguably, all those 3 fights were snooze fest. But this was the status quo until late 2022 when the division was electrified. I'm referring to the showdown between Adesanya and Alex Pereira, who had previously defeated Adesanya in kickboxing. Not once, but twice. To everyone's amazement, Adesanya lost the fight and his middleweight title in the 5th round via TKO, marking his first loss in the middleweight division. A much anticipated rematch between Pereira and Adesanya for the UFC middleweight championship occurred at UFC 287, where Adesanya secured a victory in a thrilling ending sequence. Izzy and Alex brought out the best in each other. As a result, the middleweight division saw a surge of exciting action, and upcoming fighters like Dricus du Plessis start making waves in the rankings, with his dominant victory over Robert Whittaker arguably making the second biggest upset of the year. I think we kind of have to thank Alex Pereira for helping the division to gain momentum. Since his last 2 fights, Izzy really changed the momentum of the division and really made a shockwave. This weight class became even more crazy when it was announced that Dricus was gonna face Izzy, and these 2 fighters had bad blood for one another. And then sadly, Dricus had to drop out due to an injury, and Sean took the fight and beat Izzy to get the biggest upset of the year and win the UFC middleweight championship. Afterwards, the momentum of the weight class became insane. Now we have a new champion being Sean Strickland, and a shitload of new contenders started coming up, and ranked fighters who already been in the division reinvented themselves. Specifically, I'm talking about their style, and it's quite astonishing how the middleweight division at 185 has undergone a significant transformation. A multitude of promising prospects suddenly bursted into the scene, leading to an abundance of captivating new fights on the horizon. Fighters such as Joe Pyfer, Roman Kopylov, Sharputin Magomedov, Bo Nickel, Anthony Hernandez have really spiced up the division. These matchups truly get my adrenaline pumping because they bring fresh blood and exciting new matchups, making the middleweight division feel rejuvenated. In my opinion, the weight class has to be the 3rd best in the UFC. I would say bantamweight is number 2 and lightweight being 1. That being said, the division has never been this stacked as it is right now. This era of the middleweight division has more well-rounded fighters than ever before and has really gave new life to the division. The top 15 is gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a freaking Royal Rumble, man. So many good matchups. But anyways guys, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I don't know what you guys are waiting for, and I'll see you guys on my next one.